Yeah, I joined the army on the 9th of November 1987. The regimental number, which you never forget, was 24799720. I did my training in Winchester. I got posted to the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Green Jackets. At the time they were posted in Warminster. During my 10 years service, I got promoted to a Lance Corporal in 1990. I got promoted to a Corporal in 1993. And I stayed with that regiment until the end of my service in September 1997.
Okay, great. Did you have much say of what unit you went into, or was it strictly you go in there?
Well, when you apply to join the army, you go to the careers office and you can ask to join a specific regiment. My brother Simon, he was 2 years older than me, and he joined the Coldstream Guards the year before I did. So naturally, because he was a big influence for me, I went to the same careers office in London the following year and applied to join the army, and they asked to join the Coldstream Guards, but being quite small, I wasn't tall enough. Traditionally, guards have to be quite tall because they stand aside Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle with their bearskin and tunics. Then they have to be quite tall soldiers. Before I joined the army, I think at the age of 15, I was into sort of fitness and running. So naturally, it was by the time I joined the army, I was young and healthy and fit as well. So that helped. But there's a few of the people. There was about 25 or 30 soldiers at the same age who I trained with. Some of those weren't as fit as me. Some of them were fitter than me. But I didn't have any problems. A lot to learn, hard work, but generally got stuck into it, knuckled down and did it. You finished your training, and before the training was finished, you knew which battalion you was going to join. You were already in the regiment, in the Green Jackets, and then my particular regiment had 3 battalions, 1st, 2nd and 3rd Battalion, and each of those battalions consisted of about 600-700 soldiers based in different places around the world. You did get an element of choice. They always asked you which battalion would you prefer to go to. Typical of army lifestyle and regime, you never always got what you asked. But the 3rd Battalion was currently based in Gibraltar, so coming to the end of my training, 16, 17 years old, free holiday to Gibraltar for a few months. I asked to go there. Unfortunately, I didn't get that. They sent me to the 2nd Battalion because that battalion was due to go to Northern Ireland the following year. So they needed obviously extra numbers. So towards the end of my training, you were told, right, you're going to the 2nd Battalion, and off I went. Finished my training in July 1988, and then joined the 2nd Battalion, which at the time was based in Warminster in Wiltshire. Coming to the end of that sort of 2.5 year posting there. So again, I'd done my training. I'd spent 8.5 months doing that. You get to know your friends, and you get to know the routine, and you're confident, and then you get posted to your regiment, which is a big sort of change in lifestyle, really, as far as I'm concerned. I did 2 tours of Ireland. My first tour was in County Fermanagh in 1989 for 4 months. Relatively quiet, really, for that time. I was young, learning the ropes. First time I'd been there. In fact, first time for most of us in the platoon. A lot of the NCOs, the Lance Corporals and the Corporals and Sergeants had been there before. And that particular routine was spent in 3 different locations, and every few weeks you'd move around from location to location, and you do a variety of urban patrols around the towns, rural patrols, daytime and nighttime patrols, vehicle patrols, manning the observation towers, guarding the locations that you're at, and a couple of days off to go back to UK for a break, and then about 18 months later, I got posted back to Northern Ireland again, to County Tyrone in Omagh, and we were there for 2 years, and the routine was slightly different. The first 4 months posting, you were like working day in, day out, very, very busy, and the 2 year posting was what they call a residential one, where your families and that went with you, and you were housed in a big garrison, and again you do routines where you do like a few weeks here, there and everywhere around different locations. You do the same sort of routine, but when you're away on that 4 or 5 weeks, like you're working as busy as you were in the first tour, patrols, observation posts, mobile patrols, and then you might go on to guard in the garrison for like 4 weeks, and then you have some training where you just keep practicing your patrol skills, all the skills you need for the work over in Ireland. And then you'd go on the fourth cycle was a sort of second sort of operations cycle where you go to other further locations further afield and do patrol in there. Particularly I went to Strabane and Castledurg, which was just a few miles down the road. And that's all what the routine was.
So were there any specific like conflicts that you were involved in, anything like that?
I was fortunate during my time not to been shot at. I had a couple of bombs thrown near us, but not directed at me personally or my patrol. When you're patrolling the streets and the countryside, you quite often, well, you do speak to members of the public going about their normal business. Those members of the public might be supportive of the army and the police, and they'll pass the time of day and have a bit of banter with you. Others won't be, they won't speak to you, or they just give you a load of abuse for being a soldier because they don't like you there. During your routine patrols, you come across known terrorists as well. They're not walking around with combat jackets and balaclavas and guns, going about their normal business. They only do that when they're obviously planning an attack. But these people, just get on with their own lives, but they're known terrorists, and you know who they are because when you're over in Ireland, you get shown photographs of scores and scores of photographs. Like this is a terrorist, she's a terrorist, and that's where they live, and all their personal details. So you see them out and about, and you're restricted as to what you can do. You can't arrest them unless they're doing something. It's just frustrating that that they're fighting their terrorist cause against the British soldiers and the police over there. So that's sort of daily routine, meeting people, good people and bad people. I didn't have much conflict in a way of confrontation with any shootings or bombings. We was at a permanent vehicle checkpoint near the border on one occasion where a grenade was thrown over the wall, which partly detonated. That could have had more devastating effects that had gone off. The only other confrontation that I wasn't particularly involved in was my brother was killed over there. He was obviously in the army as well. Like what he mentioned, Simon joined the Coldstream Guards a year before me. When I went to Northern Ireland on my second tour in 1991, he'd gone to Ireland as well with his battalion. I'd gone for the 2-year tour, and he was going on the 6-month tour to South Armagh. And he was based at Besbrook Mill in South Armagh, which is renowned for being a very, very staunch diarrhea area, very anti-police, anti-military. So he was there for the 6 months between March 91 and September 91, doing pretty much a hard routine for 6 months, patrolling, helicopter patrols, day and night time patrols, similar to what I'd done before and what he'd done before in Belfast. The particular incident he was involved in was a 3-day patrol in the area of Cullyhanna, near to Crossmaglen. They'd gone out on the Thursday afternoon from Besbrook, and they planned to go out until the Saturday morning, 17th of August. They'd gone out at 1 o'clock on the Thursday, due to be picked up by helicopter at 8:20 on the Saturday morning. And that 3-day patrol was as routine as any other patrol. Vehicle checkpoints, house searches to do, and dominating that particular area to sort of deny the terrorists their movement and deny any terrorist activity. There was one particular extra task they were involved in. That was for looking for a piece of equipment that was lost about 10 days before by a soldier from the same unit. So that was their routine for that 3-day patrol. Unbeknown to them, the IRA had planted a bomb in a wood near to the helicopter pickup. Now that bomb wasn't particularly planted for that specific patrol. It had been planted before, probably the previous month or two before, because the IRA had obviously identified that the army were using that area quite a lot, for various reasons. And that's how the IRA worked. They watched patrols. They knew they watched the routines, and they picked up on habits and repeating routines that the patrols did. It was just most unfortunate that the reason why the IRA had planted that bomb in that wood, that Simon's patrol was there that day. So anyway, they slept over in a remote area on the Friday night, the 16th of August, and they'd left this remote area on the high ground, going towards a helicopter pickup near this wood, and this wood's called Karakavadi Wood, and it's on the Karakavadi Road, and the main road that goes south down to Kalihana from Newton Hamilton. The patrol was routine, like every other patrol had been. They left this lie-up position in 3-4 man teams. Simon was the third man in his team. So if you imagine this wood, there was a fire broke through the wood, wide enough for a tractor to drive down, and they approached the wood from the southern side, and the helicopter pickup was on the northern side of the wood in a field, probably 150 metres. Like I said, it's 3-4 man teams. Simon's team had gone through the fire break, but in front of them was the first 4-man team, and the other 4-man team had patrolled on the western side of the wood, if that makes sense. Inside the wood was inside the fire break, sorry, was a bend, and Simon was the third man, and as he approached that bend, the bomb which was planted on the track on the right hand side detonated. He was killed instantly. It was a 250-pound landmine, so fortunately for him, he didn't feel anything. Other soldiers in patrol had escaped cuts and bruises and a bit of shock. So that's a particular incident that Simon was involved in, and the planting of that bomb was quite, like all IRA attacks were quite cruel and sinister. The terrorists were very highly motivated individuals, and particularly the IRA were very, very sophisticated, and they'd been involved in terrorism for like decades, in the 38 years that Operation Banner was running in Northern Ireland. So they gained their experience, right from the early days in 1969 onwards. And it was just most unfortunate that Simon was involved in that patrol and carrying the equipment that obviously made the bomb go off. So that was obviously Simon's death. I researched his death. I was in Northern Ireland still at the time. I researched his circumstances of his death for many years. In particular, the first 18 months was determined to find out exactly what happened. And that was what I set out to do from the beginning. So he was killed in the August 91, 17th of August, at 8 o'clock in the morning. The December of that same year, I travelled down to Besbrook to see for myself where he was killed, and to do some research. The army unit down there. I went to the inquest about 18 months later. I managed to get hold of loads of reports and statements and photographs of the incident. And I made a sort of scrapbook of photographs and newspaper cuttings, because his death at the time was, like most of them were, and like they are now with Afghanistan, it was always in the newspaper, in the television news newspaper. So I kept all the newspaper cuttings and what video footage I had from the news archives. And I made a scrapbook, and every year around about his anniversary in August, I sort of flipped through the scrapbook, just to reminisce about what happened and his life and that. And it got to about 2003, and I thought to myself, I can do something better than this. So I started doing some more research in the intention of writing a book about his circumstances of him being killed. There's loads of books out there about Northern Ireland, various different types, individual ones or just general about Northern Ireland campaign, as there is now with Iraq and Afghanistan. So I thought I'll do a bit more, and I'll put pen to paper and write a book, just to tell my story out there. This is one soldier who's been killed, like many other hundreds and thousands of soldiers that have been killed in terrorist incidents all over the world, but in particular he was one of 763 soldiers killed in the Northern Ireland campaign. His death was slightly different in certain ways, but I just wanted to tell the story, what happened. So that led me to do tons more research, and I went back to Northern Ireland again in 2003 to see for myself where he was killed. Because when I went back in the December of '91, I wasn't allowed to go any closer than outside of the wood. But this particular occasion, I'd gone into the wood and actually stood in the crater in the place where he was killed. 12 years after his death, that embankment where the bomb was planted on this bend, you could see a slight dip where the crater was. So that was quite weird, really. Standing in the spot where my brother had been killed by the terrorists 12 years before. So I did loads more research, spoke to loads more of his army mates, and spoke to the MOD, spoke to the Police Service Northern Ireland and other agencies, and got loads more information and put to pen to paper to write this book, which was published in August 2010. So it's a fairly new one. And it's called A Rendezvous with the Enemy, My Brother's Life and Death in the Colston Guards in Northern Ireland. And that, it's not put an end to it, it's just my way of dealing with it, and basically telling the story of what happened to soldiers over in Northern Ireland. It didn't, obviously it was devastating, you never get over it, but over the years you tend to sort of deal with it in different ways, and writing a book was was a bit of therapy for me, I suppose. I was always determined. I mean, when soon after Simon was killed, a lot of people thought I'd want to leave the army, I want to leave Northern Ireland, but I was determined to carry on because I'd just gone to Ireland for my 2 years, so I had 2 years left to do. So a lot of people thought that was quite, his brother's been killed in Ireland, let's sort of get him out of Ireland, which is something I'd made clear right from the beginning I didn't want to do. I was determined to stay with my regiment and continue on that 2-year tour and do my job. That's what I joined the army for, and that's what I was in Ireland for. So I carried on doing the work in Northern Ireland, and I was more determined, to do it in the hope that at some point I would have some success in capturing any terrorists. Or at the end of the day, the army's aim in Northern Ireland at the time was to assist the RUC in the defeat of terrorism and to kill or capture the terrorists. It's simple. So I was more determined to sort of not so much to get some revenge, but to do my job. So that worked out with some success the following year. But yeah, it gave me more determination. April 1992, so we're sort of 6 months after Simon had been killed. I was on a nighttime patrol in the town of Strabane in County Tyrone, just close to the border. I'd gone out on a nighttime patrol, no different to any other patrols that I'd done. It was routine. I'd left the RUC station, and this particular time, instead of walking straight into the town, because you change your routine, you don't walk out the gates and go straight down the road into the town centre and patrol around and whatever. You as a commander, patrol commander, you sort of look at your map and you decide where you're going to go. You don't want to make the same routes, you don't make the same patterns or routines, because that's how accidents happen. So I left the police station and I patrolled out of the town and sort of back in down the hill. Church Street it was called, patrolling down Church Street, quite a dark area, big church to the right, and my attention was drawn to about 15 metres on the left hand side in an alleyway near to some parked cars. Some guy was sort of fumbling around, just looking a bit suspicious. So I stopped the patrol. He didn't see me because it was fairly dark. There were some dimly lit street lights, and I had some illumination with me and on the sight system and the weapon. So I stopped the patrol, just watched him, and it just didn't look right. He's in an alleyway and he's fumbling around. I looked for the sight on my weapon, which had some magnification. I sort of recognised him as one of these local terrorists. So I'd informed me. At that time, I was the commander of an 8-man patrol, 2 4-man teams, my team and me, 2 IC's team, the second in command of my section. So I briefed him as to what I'd seen, and this guy had walked down into the town. He'd not seen us, he walked down into the town. So I tasked the other patrol to go and follow him and search him. and I'd gone, as he was following him, I'd gone to the alleyway, and I noticed in the alleyway, in the corner, was a CB radio, which was switched on, and it was hidden in the corner. So I thought to myself, well, he's obviously, that's what he's there for, he had this radio. And the terrorists do what they call dicking, and I mentioned it earlier in the interview about they watch your routine, and they see what you do. And so this guy walked off, my patrol were walking in to stop him, and they stopped him and searched him, and at the same time I joined the patrol and identified this bloke I'd seen in the alleyway. It was the same bloke. Searched him, nothing on him. Knew he was a terrorist. He's up to no good, but there's nothing on him, no bombs, nothing like that to arrest him for anything. So we let him go, and then both our patrols had sort of gone in separate directions, and this guy wandered off. But I knew, you have that feeling in the back of your mind, something's not right. So I went back and I waited for him to come back. I'd put the other patrol in a sort of observation post watching it, and I'd gone to the police station to speak to the patrol sergeant and the quick reaction force, because you have a team on standby called QRF. So I spoke to them and briefed them. At that point, this guy had come back to the alleyway and picked up this radio, and at that point we sort of converged on him and grabbed hold of him, and he's got this radio in the hand. He got arrested by the police, called the police out, and he got arrested. And then early, unbeknown to me at that time, there was a shop further down the street which had been boarded up, a derelict shop, and the owner of that shop had phoned the police earlier on in the evening saying there's some suspicious activity. I don't know what it was. At the time of this incident with this chap, we didn't know about that. So I've done a sort of a line of sight appreciation. Well, this guy's obviously here speaking to some terrorist somewhere who are at the end of a bomb, and that's what happens. You've got the terrorist at the location where the bomb is, and you've got this, what we call a dicker, who's watching the patrol, and when our patrol that night would have gone past this boarded up shop where the bomb was, or where the bomb could have been, then he gets on the radio and says, right, they're patrolling past now, and then the terrorist who's out of sight will just push the button, and bang goes the bomb. So we got this terrorist who's got this CB radio, who's been arrested, and further down the street, in line of sight where this bloke was, we've got this boarded up shop where this suspicious activity had been reported earlier on. So I suggested to our commanders higher up the chain to sort of put that out of use for the night and maybe search it the next day in daylight, which was done on the Saturday morning. And to our success, a £15 bomb was found behind this boarded up shop. It was on a paint tin, £15 of homemade explosive, which was attached to a command wire. The terrorists used to detonate bombs in various different ways, and this particular one was a command wire, electric cable basically, attached to the bomb, which run down an alleyway and attached to the firing pack, which is the power to obviously make the detonator go off and for the bomb to go off. Where this firing point was a CB radio, same radio that was found in the alleyway where we arrested this terrorist earlier on. Both of them were switched on and both on the same channel. So clearly there's a couple of terrorists at the end of this command wire waiting for this terrorist here to say, right, the army walking past, push the button, bang goes the bomb, and the terrorists escape. So that was, for me, a great success because we'd arrested this terrorist and we'd prevented a bomb going off that particular night, and we'd found the bomb. So I got awarded a mention in dispatches for distinguished service for that, the command and control of that operation. And it was only 6 months after Simon had been killed, and I was quite pleased with myself. We arrested this terrorist, and we found a bomb and prevented another terrorist attack and possibly saved lives that night. Because if we hadn't hadn't seen that initial first terrorist and dealt with that, then we could have patrolled down the street, or the other four-man team could have patrolled down the street and been blown up. Obviously, having serious injuries or at worst fatalities during a bomb explosion. So that was my capture of the terrorist.